James O'Brien on LBC.
22 minutes after 11. Gosh, fascinating. It's in many ways worse than I thought. But we will keep an eye on Carol's astonishingly fruitful work with regard to these so-called data operations and links between Leave campaigns and the Kremlin and Cambridge Analytica. I'm going to allow myself a little bit longer to invite you to analyse what I've said, and then we're going to find out a little bit more about Russian hybrid warfare, oddly. It's almost as if we planned it today. I didn't know that was going to pop up during my conversation with Carol. I didn't know it lay behind the decision to withhold from the public evidence of attempts by the Kremlin to woo senior members of the Leave EU campaign. But there's an author called James Patrick who's been writing about Russian hybrid warfare for over a year, way ahead of the game, and he's joining us in about 20 minutes by coincidence. So hold on to your hats. Back to the question of the break. All I'm interested in is that what happened yesterday? That conservative rebels sought to secure the ability to put the brakes on if, not when, we can keep this friendly today, if it becomes absolutely clear that we're going to be considerably worse off after leaving the European Union than we are in it. So this is, I think, what was in the between the lines of Philip Lee's resignation statement. So that's what they were trying to do. And the furious rejection of that, the suggestion that there can be no break, not just that we will never put it on, there cannot be a break. Well, that dismays and confuses me. Why not? And then there was one article, I think in the Telegraph, by a Leave cheerleader that said it doesn't matter what happens, we have to get over the line. And I think that's the mindset that's in place now. It doesn't matter. There's still an argument out there that people will be cross if they don't get the Brexit that they voted for, but nobody is going to get the Brexit that they voted for. People voted to leave the European Union thinking we could be like Norway. People voted to leave the European Union thinking that we could be like Switzerland. People voted to leave the European Union thinking that they need us more than we need them. People voted to leave the European Union thinking that that we'd still be able to trade with them in exactly the same way that we do now. Absolutely everybody who voted to leave the European Union believed something that has turned out not to be true. So that argument doesn't really wash either until you look at it through the lens of what Carol described, and you wonder what would happen if there was another massive push to persuade people, I don't know, to respond, well, just to mislead and misinform on an industrial scale. What happened yesterday in Parliament with regard to the break? James is in Barnes. James, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello, James.
There's no Somalians in Barnes this morning.
Somalis. We have to say Somalis, not Somalians.
Sorry.
No, it's not. It's me. It's my fault. It's Nimco's been. My friend Nimco has been in touch
to a rotten school. You see, you didn't have.
I know it's true. It's true, but it's all clear in Barnes, is it, at the moment?
It is, but there's a few Jews in my road, of which I'm one.
Oh.
But, so we're going to.
Is that a ghetto? Is that a ghetto?
They're all in the same road as me, so we're not sure whether that qualifies as a Jewish ghetto yet. But, we'll see. Well, I was just going to say, joking aside, is that I spoke to Mr. Dale the other day, and all these people that are ex-Brexiters will not hear anything that is a fact.
I'm not comfortable having honourable colleagues criticised on this programme.
No,
you can criticise a dishonourable one if you want, but Ian's a mate of mine.
I'm not criticising him.
Good. Okay.
I think he's I actually have a lot of respect for him, Dale, because even though he holds right-wing views, he's very fair in his. In the way that he puts points. No, yes. I'm not. This is not a criticism.
Good. Just checking.
But no. But I'm just saying that. When it's put to people who are Brexiters, forget Mr. Dale, that this referendum was a consultative referendum. Even Mr. Farage agrees with that. And when the MPs had their vote on Article 50, if they really were exercising the democracy of this country, because 2/3 of them are against Brexit, they should have voted to kick out Article 50, and that would have been that. And I think that they are now, better late than never, exercising a bit of the control of Parliament over government that they should have done then, because they had no business actually voting on party lines then. They should have voted with their consciences.
But they couldn't. You was crushed the same. You remember what the atmosphere was like. It was so febrile. There are still a few sort of...
I understand that,
yeah. And I have sympathy for them. You know, Anna Soubry revealed yesterday that one of her Remain colleagues has 6 armed guards with her on a recent public opinion. We know that there was a court case is still unfolding, but there's been a guilty plea on by one far right individual. I sympathise with them, and you could argue that more honour could have been displayed. But you're right. That would have been the proper reflection of parliamentary democracy, but it didn't happen. Yeah. Do you think what I've described as happening yesterday is accurate? It is.
Yeah, I do.
So why are they so reluctant to have a break? Is it because they have to get it over the line, even when it becomes clear that it's a terrible idea?
Yes, absolutely. Because
that's where I get so confused.
You hear. I mean, you have even now this morning, listening to Nick, Mr. Farage, in his own words, this is a conspiracy organised by Mr. Soros.
Right.
So Mr. Soros is behind the rebel Tory MPs.
I see. I didn't hear that. I believe you.
Yeah. I mean, it defies belief that it's like Mr. Trump. They just come up with anything and say it without any foundation. But I think that they are very much like Brexit means. We voted. This is what the will of the people. But half the will of half the people, nearly half the country.
So many people.
Half the people didn't vote nearly for the. And I think that in real democracy is actually taking into consideration what the other half, or the nearly other half, did not want. And I think the MPs are, thank God,
I'm with you all the way until this weird sort of speed bump where I kind of think that there must be lots of people who not yet are perfectly willing to reflect and respect that, but you look at there will come a point where we know what we're going to get, and at that point, why would anybody not want the right to change their mind?
Because they are so. They've put themselves into a corner, James. That's how I feel. And that they are so much in a corner of delusional belief that this is what is right for the country, that it's as if they're in a sort of a...
When the delusion can no longer be sustained, when we're actually aware, when we have it properly explained to us in the event of a no deal, what trading on World Trade Organization rules means, when people like the outgoing head of the CBI describing the extinction of the British car industry, when it actually becomes clear, why would they not want the right to change their mind then?
Because you're asking me. You know more. It does defy belief. If this was in a sort of a political drama on television, you wouldn't believe it.
No, you wouldn't.
It's not possible.
No, you wouldn't.
And I think that you wouldn't. And when you hear people, and I won't mention anybody's names, talking on the radio,
it's awful.
But you hear them every day talking on the radio, and it's just a law of sense. They go, but there's 89% of the trading world is outside the EU. But, and we...
So that's a new refrain, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, but how can you do deals? How can you get a better deal with Australia, with one country, than 27?
And why does Germany do 5 times more trade with China than we do?
And then you get Brexiteers saying, but look at Switzerland. They do deals with all the world, and they don't have a problem.
Well, of course
maybe not. Yeah, and so I think that they are. I don't think you're going to change their minds, James. I think they are.
Well, then why are they so frightened of the break then?
Because they know what will happen. I think that what will happen, if it's a bad deal, the MPs will vote against it. There is no doubt about that. And I think Theresa May had to agree to that because she would have lost that vote. And if her best mate, Mr. Lee, resigned on that principle, then she knew she had a big problem because he's a great friend of hers.
Yes, and it would have focused the mind. James, you've made me late for the news. I'm hearing reports that perhaps some of my colleagues aren't as respectful of me on their programmes as I am of them, but I refuse to believe that Ian Dale would ever have said such a thing on the radio. It's 11:31. Thomas Watts is here with the headlines.